been mad at God, right? I've been angry with God for the past 7 months. And only yesterday did I realize that all this anger that I have, all of this anger, all of this hatred that I have was misplaced, right? During these 6 months, I've been through a lot, right? So 7 or 6 months, I've been through a lot. And it led me to feel a sort of like unright and misplaced anger towards God, because I was thinking, right, God, what are you doing in my life right now? Is this really what you want for your children? Is this really what you want from me? Right? It's just a life full of bitterness, full of anger, full of disappointment. And I was thinking, right, yesterday I kind of prayed about it. I had a conversation with God. I was like, God, is this really what you want for me? Why aren't you answering me? Why are you so silent? Especially in this hard season that I'm in. And I'm starting to think, is it just better to stop believing, right? If my Christian journey, right, if my journey was just full of storms and obstacles that I have to overcome, is it better to just stop believing? And then this sort of anger towards God turned into bitterness in my heart, that I started forgetting that God is good. Don't get me wrong, I'm not dissing God right now. I'm not saying bad things about God right now. He is good. He's amazing, actually. He's perfect, you know? And I feel like in these times that we're in, especially hard seasons that we're in, we're gonna start blaming God for the things that He didn't even do, right? So a perfect example of this would be someone from the Old Testament. It's not Job, no, it's not David either, but it's Naomi from Ruth, right? So to preface this, right? Famine strikes in Bethlehem. So Naomi, her husband, and her 2 sons had to flee to Moab, the pagan rival of Bethlehem, right? And then her husband dies, and then so does her 2 sons, die 10 years later. So think about it. She has to grieve not only the love of her life, her husband, but she has to grieve her 2 children. So now she's all alone, right? And then during this time, actually, if you have no husband, no children, then you basically have no social safety net. You have no legal protection. No one can earn money for you, so you'll basically starve. But at least now that she heard that the famine is over in Bethlehem, so there's food again. Nice. So she goes back. She goes from Moab to Bethlehem again, right? And then as soon as she arrived, she already got boated with these questions. Yo, is this Naomi? And then she basically says to them, don't call me Naomi, which means pleasant. Instead, call me Mara, right? Which means bitter. Because the Almighty has done very bitter of me, right? I came to Him full and He brought me back empty, or something like that. So she says that to all these people in her town, right? And then it just kind of makes you think, right? Is it really God's fault? I don't think it's God's fault, no? And then actually before this, when Ruth tries to be with her, right? She says, why will you go to me? Do I still have sons in my womb? So she pushes her friends or her close loved ones, right, away, right? Just like we would do nowadays, where we would be like, oh, go away, I don't want anyone in my life. And I'm actually guilty of this too. I push people away when I'm kind of like going through something because I think that I deserve it. But yeah, so not me. So right now, Naomi tells Ruth and Orpah, I don't know how to pronounce it, to go away. I have basically she's just saying, oh, I have nothing in me anymore, what's the point of being with me, just go, right? And then actually in the end, right, God is still good. So God heals, not Ruth, sorry, God heals Naomi through human relationships, right? Because God is good, right? Even after Naomi was like, go away from me, right? God has God has done so much better things, right? Go away from me. And God still healed her, despite her being bitter towards God, despite her being angry towards God. And it just shows how perfect, amazing, loving, merciful He is, bro. And I'm sure in every Christian's life, there will be times where you're starting to question God's sovereignty, you're starting to question God's goodness, you're starting to question whether He really is worth believing in. Just stop questioning those. He's perfect, He's good, right? There's nothing more than that, nothing less than that. I mean, not nothing more, there's nothing less than that. He is good, right? So actually, there's two verses that I want to talk about, right? One being from Genesis, and the other being from Romans, right? My favorite book, amazing book, right? So Genesis 1 first, right? So in Genesis 50, verse 20, this actually is during Joseph's time, where he was, I guess, like sold by his brothers. I don't know if you could say sold by his brothers, right, to Egypt. And then eventually he becomes this huge like Egyptian major figure, right? And then yeah, so that's the context. So during Genesis 50, verse 20, it says, "As for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, to bring about that many people should be kept alive as they are today." So basically, Joseph got sold into slavery, right? That's completely by his brothers, by the way, by his family. So he got sold into slavery by his family, and then eventually he has this whole redemption arc, not redemption arc, but like huge arc where he becomes second to the Pharaoh, because he says something about like, oh, there will be a huge famine in Egypt, right? So during this huge famine, he told the Pharaoh or something like that, and then the Pharaoh managed to save like 7 years of food, and now no one's starving, right? So that's the basic context of it. That's not entire detail of it, but yeah, basic context. And then, so in Genesis 50:20, he says, "As for you, you meant evil against me." You, as in, he's talking to his brothers right now. You meant evil against me, right? You wanted to sell me because you were jealous, right? So you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good. So this verse, like, it just shows already, right? We can't blame God, because God does not tempt, He does not do bad things for us. He allows things to happen, but He doesn't do it. You know what I mean? He allows things to happen because it can be about for growth. But there's this quote in the Bible, right? No weapon shall prosper, right? So no weapon formed by the enemy shall prosper. So although God will allow it to happen, He will not let it prosper, because that's just how good He is, right? Okay, kind of told myself I wouldn't like tear up, but yeah. Okay, anyways, back to Genesis 50:20. It is amazing how faithful God really is. You know what I mean? Because even in times like Naomi, where she blames God, or even in times where we don't, in Genesis 50, where we don't understand why God is allowing our own brothers to sell us into slavery, He is still faithful. Even when we question Him, even when we think, oh God, what are you doing in my life? You know what I mean? And it's amazing. That's why like I realized it's not, my anger is not placed properly, you know, or there shouldn't be any anger at all, because instead of questioning God, what are you doing to me? I started questioning God. What are you trying to teach me, right? What are you trying to do in my life to make me grow, right? So yeah, this video is already 10 minutes. I don't want to make it any more longer, but okay, let's move on. Romans. So this is the second verse that I wanted to talk about, which is Romans 1 verse 24. So I actually talked about this before, where it says, therefore God gave them up in the lusts of their hearts to impurity, to the dishonoring of their bodies among themselves. So if we actually read this verse very carefully, it says that God gave them up, right? So we are in possession of God right now, right? But he gives us free will. So it says God gave them up in the lust of their hearts. So if you deeply desire something, right? Like deeply, like unhealthily desire something, that's lust. It's not only sexual immorality, but deeply desire something, that's already lust, right? And then God has us, right? God owns us, but he will give us up to the lust, to the very, very unhealthy desires of our hearts. If we start putting those desires above God, then that's when he'll give us up, right? He's like, okay, you want to worship this? Go ahead. You can go worship it, right? Let it be your Lord, right? And then let's see how that turns out. And then oftentimes we're gonna start blaming God. We're like, God, what are you doing? God, why are you allowing this? Yeah? And then we're gonna start getting angry, but then we forget that we have these things in our hearts, right? That we still worship. We put Lord over our lives. So it could be whether about like we're corn addicted, right? Or we're addicted with money. We can't get enough money, right? Or drugs or alcohol or smoking or all of these, right? As long as we put something above God, and as long as we start putting those things that we need to do above God, he will give us up, right? He will give us up to the lust of our hearts. So it's actually not his fault, it's our own doing, right? What, you want God to force you to love him and only him? That's not love, that's program, right? So he loves you so that he allows you to be with the desires of your heart. So it's not his fault if you desire something unhealthy, right? It's not his fault if you desire something that will eventually cause you to have spiritual death or something like that. I don't know. It's not his fault. Stop blaming him. It's if anything, it can be your fault even, because you put these things above God. And when you do that, that's when you're playing dangerously. That's when it starts getting dangerous, you know? So yeah, we just gotta remember, God is good, right? We can't blame God for something that we did, for something that other people did. Yes, we can say that he allowed it to happen, but relax. What they meant for evil, or what is meant for evil, God made it for good. You just gotta you gotta remember that. You know what I mean? So yeah, I guess that's just what I wanted to talk about today. I guess just I don't even think it's short. It's like 15 minutes. But yeah, this is a topic that deeply resonates with me, because I've been mad at God for like 7 or 6. I'm not saying 6 or 7, right? 7 or 6 months now. And I started forgetting who God was. I started forgetting how good God really is, right? So yeah, my advice, my last words: try to get back to God. It's not his fault. You can't blame him for the things that happens in this world. So yeah. Bye guys.